Welcome back, my friends, to the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. Each week, I'm sharing stories from my path and using the power of conversation and collaboration with my many great guests. Together, we chart a course toward understanding, bridging divides, and fostering a community where wisdom prevails over discord. Friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. The only good thing about a bad attitude is we have the ability as individuals to change it. For me, it starts with gratitude and personal accountability. I am so incredibly grateful that you have taken the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Please remember to subscribe and share the DTH podcast with your network of friends. If you would like to support the show, check out the Support Us page on the D-Rate the Hate website. With that, my friends, let's get to it. How often do you feel like you're juggling the impossible? I know there's plenty of times when I do. Trying to balance the demands of work, family, and the pressures you put on yourself, it can feel overwhelming, right? But what if I told you there's a way to find harmony, not just balance, but real, meaningful harmony, so you can lead a life that works and feels right for you? Today, I'm sitting down with someone who knows this journey all too well, Arlene Cohen Miller. Arlene is the CEO of Jewel Consultancy and a work-life balance and harmony coach with a powerful mission. With a background as a highly regarded attorney, an internationally certified coach, and even a certified meditation facilitator, Arlene brings a unique balance and blend of experience and insight to help women, and really anyone, to lead with compassion, self-confidence, and clarity. In this conversation, Arlene and I dive deep into what it takes to overcome the overwhelm, quiet that inner critic, and shift our mindset with practices like gratitude and self-compassion. She's got practical strategies for setting priorities, celebrating your small wins, and even finding healing in something as simple as connecting with nature. So if you've ever felt like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, or you've struggled to give yourself grace when you stumble, this episode is for you. Tune in, my friends, and let's explore how we can each take one step closer to a life filled with balance, growth, and fulfillment. Let's get to it right after this quick message. Hey friends, it's Wilk, and before we get into this week's incredible episode, I would like to tell you about another podcast that you might like from our friends at Braver Angels. A Braver Way with Monica Guzman is a podcast that's about politics, but it's so completely different from any politics show that you've heard. Each episode leaves you with a better understanding of your fellow Americans, even ones who, when you hear about them on the news, totally confound you. Their goal for the current season, which I absolutely love, is to help you face this election year without losing heart. You can find it at braverangels.org/abraverway or by searching A Braver Way wherever you get your podcasts. Friends, I absolutely love this show, and I hope you'll give it a listen. And with that, let's get to this week's episode. Here we go. Arlene Cohen Miller, thank you so much for joining me here on the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here.
When you reached out, Arlene, I was looking into the things that you do, and your story had a number of different things that really intrigued me. And one of the things that always stands out to me in a profile is when people start talking about gratitude and how we become happier people. And then when I saw that you talk a lot about whether it be a being a care provider for your child or a working mother and things like that. I know that's a lot of that's something that a lot of people struggle with, Arlene. And then when I saw that you really like to help people find a better work-life balance and how that that work-life balance, gratitude, stress relief, all those things. I was like, I think this is going to make for a good conversation. So thank you, Arlene, for joining me here on the Derate the Hate podcast. So let's start a little bit, with your story, because I in the brief time that I was kind of looking over your background, I saw that you got your law degree. You're living in the Midwest or Ohio. You're just basically in the infant stages of your law degree, and then you became a young mother, and like anybody can imagine, being a lawyer is very time consuming. But then to bring a child into that, and so let's start there, because I kind of want to build up to where this work-life balance thing started for you.
Yeah, so I had gotten out of law school. I graduated when I was 25. I had worked for a couple of other attorneys for about 3 years because they really don't teach you how to practice law in law school. You just like learn on the job. So I got tired of that and I just really wanted to be my own boss. I really kind of learned that from my father. He had his own company and he was like the inspiration for me to be an entrepreneur. And I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. I rented an office in a storefront kind of building in Lakewood, Ohio, a small town, and right next to Cleveland. And there were two other attorneys in there who had an office and an employment agency. I put out my shingle. I opened the doors. I joined a women's group. I was doing some advertising, and my husband was in my husband. Um, we started talking about having a kid. I started talking about having a kid. I wanted to have a kid. And like the next week, I found out I was pregnant. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I just started my business less than a month ago. I'm going to have a child in 9 months from now. How the heck am I going to do this? Because he was in training. He was in residency as a doctor. He was working 70, 80 hours a week. He was not there. And so I had to really learn how to build my own kind of tribe community. My folks lived in Louisville, Kentucky, so I didn't have the support of them or my ex's family. And it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard to figure out how to start a business, how to run a business, how to take care of my child, how to be pregnant through all of that. It was really interesting. And I really feel that that's how I ended up being like a work-life balance coach for women, because man, I wish there was someone there that was doing some coaching and mentoring when I was going through that, because I was just sort of, finding my way through the dark.
Sure. No, I can imagine, and there's so many people, especially with, time. This sounds funny, but it's not like time has slowed down, since then. I mean, that was obviously a while back, and now the velocity of everything has gotten to be more and more and more. I mean, the speed with which everything is happening. I mean, we live in a 24-hour news cycle. Things are open 24 hours a day. Everything is going on constantly. But it's the thing that I like to think about now is because sometimes people become overwhelmed with everything that's going on, instead of just stepping back and taking it one piece at a time and realizing that it just kind of like that, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. They don't even think about the fact that we gotta have a plan. We gotta start small. We gotta figure out. So Arlene, let's start there and just say, okay, when it all becomes overwhelming, when you've got all these different things going on and you're trying to make all the things happen, and it just keeps, it just seems like more and more and more stuff is coming at us. What are the tricks that people, let's say it's a single mother or a mother who, or a soon to be mother, like the situation that you were in, with your husband at the time, who's working 80, 90 hours a week. He's just not there to do what, to be that support structure that you need, but yet you still made it happen. So kind of walk us through that.
Well, I can't say that I didn't do it without tripping and falling a whole bunch of times, but in hindsight, I guess the first advice that I would give to women is that I think we're trained to put way too much on our plate. Like our to-do list that we have for a day might take a whole week, and that's not reasonable. And so we have to learn how to set our priorities as a mother, as a professional, or wherever we're working. What do we absolutely have to get done today? And that's the top thing that we do. And when we check that off, everything else is icing on the cake. So we're not constantly making ourselves into a failure by setting ourselves up to fail because we cannot possibly do everything that we set up for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the first thing that we really need to do. And I guess what I really learned along the way as well is how to stop and breathe. You know, how to, I've trained myself, okay, like universe, I want to know when I'm starting to get anxious or overwhelmed, bring that to my awareness because oftentimes we would just work through that. We would keep on going and going and going until we fall into a deep, dark hole. We don't want to do that. We want to be aware when we're starting to get overwhelmed and it's too anxious because maybe we've gotten some things done. And that's when we need to take a break. Even if it's a 5-minute break and maybe go outside and be in nature and she's really grounding and welcoming and it can like bring us down and we can take some deep breaths, breathe
Mm-hmm.
in and
Mm-hmm.
let everything go. I think it's really important to keep it super simple because there's no such thing as getting there when it comes to work-life balance. There's always new things coming up. Kids are very different in infants than when they're 7 or when they're 15. And so is the job and so what we're doing. And so those are a few of the small things that we can do for ourselves. I mean, I could give you a big long list, but it's if we just remember a couple things, stop, be aware, let's take a break, let's breathe, we can also acknowledge and celebrate the success we've already had today
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Mm-hmm.
just pushing it to one side and go, oh, that's nothing. I think we have a tendency to do that as well. So we're acknowledging our success and then we're taking a break and breathing, and then we can come back to what needs to be done with fresh eyes. So we need to be able to take care of ourselves so that we're not circling down that spiral into a dark tunnel. We need to stop before that happens.
Absolutely. One of the things that kind of struck me about some of the things that you've said, Arlene, is people become overwhelmed because they put too many things on their plate, and then they expect that they have to get them all done, and then in comes our inner critic, right? I mean, our inner critic is. I think for all of us, whether it be a single working mom or a professional mom that has so much on her plate, or men for that matter, just the men that are out there trying to do what they can do to provide for their family. Our inner critic, no matter who you are, can be our biggest nightmare, right? I mean,
Right.
but it's very important for us to celebrate those small wins, not become overwhelmed. Like I said, take that elephant one bite at a time. So let's go a little bit deeper into that because I think that's one of the more important things that people struggle with, and whether it be in their personal life, their professional life, their relationships, whatever the case may be. That inner critic tends to can be our nemesis. So dive a little bit deeper
Absolutely.
into that for me, would you, Arlene?
Yeah, and when I'm talking here, it's for men and women. I'm a work-life balance coach for women because I can relate. I went to that, but men and women alike, could use some help with balancing and harmonizing their lives. And so that inner critic is like that patterning and programming in our head that tells us that we're stupid or dumb for making this mistake and then berates us and beats us up. And it's just a pattern and a program that we've adopted in life somewhere, maybe in
Mm-hmm.
childhood, maybe from teachers, maybe from peer groups, but it's not who we are. And the first thing we need to remind ourselves is this is not who I am. It's just a pattern and program that I've taken on that's dragging me down and causing me to lose confidence and self-esteem. And since I put it into place to protect myself somehow, probably as a child, I can do something to turn it around. And the easiest way that I like to explain it to people is I feel like we all have the gift where we can be really good if a friend or someone we love comes to us and is telling us the same thing that's going on in our head about what we did and all the things that are wrong and how we failed. What would we say to that dear friend? What would we say to that person that we love? How would we nurture them? How would we support them? How would we lift them up? How would we champion them? And sometimes, we need tough love and a little kick in the bum because we've got our head up a dark place and we're really not seeing things as they are. But we have that skill with other people. And it's really often easy for us to be there for other people like that. So all we have to do is to turn around and begin to apply it to ourselves and give ourselves permission to do so and to really notice how we're talking to ourselves. Because my inner critic was like a woman gone wild or a kid gone wild when I was in my 20s, but I didn't hear her. I thought that was the way things were. And so we have to train ourselves to listen how we're talking to ourselves and then face this inner critic because that de-energizes it when we acknowledge it. Oh, wow, I'm talking to myself and I'm not being kind. And then we can start to apply the inner coach stuff.
Isn't that the way that it goes, Arlene? It never ceases to amaze me how so many of us will treat other people with more kindness than we will treat ourselves, thinking that we're somehow doing them a favor. But one thing that comes up in so many of my conversations is if we fill our cup first, if we are good to ourselves, we can be better to other people and genuinely and more naturally better to other people. Because if we truly take care of ourselves and don't beat ourselves up, it's just easier. It becomes more natural to be a better person for the world around us, for our circle of influence, for the people that depend on us. So why do you think that is? Why do you think that so many people will beat themselves up and treat others better than they treat themselves? I don't know that that's something that you normally talk about, but
I don't mind talking about it. I can't talk for a moment. I don't want to get stuck on the why because that can cause us to go around in circles. But oftentimes we're taught either it's under the surface that's there or it's actually told us that it's selfish to love ourselves. It's selfish to take care of ourselves. I can remember like kids taunting other kids when I was a little kid. You love yourself. You love yourself. I mean, as if it was something bad. And so I think it's out there in the culture. And if our parents don't teach us, we pick it up. And so that's why it's there. And I agree with you 100%. And one of the simple ways we can deal with that, and of course, if we don't fill our cup up with love, we have nothing to give to other people. We're going to be frustrated, upset, and angry, and then we're not going to like our behavior, and then we're going to beat ourselves up for that. It's not a good look. One way I can suggest, I don't know if your other podcast guests have suggested this, but we have all these kids inside of ourselves that they get stuck in time. We didn't like their behavior. We did something, we judged it as bad or wrong. And so when I start hearing that and feeling that, I go, okay, how old is Arlene inside? Is she 8? Is she 6? Is she 14? What's going on here? And then I turn around and I do my best to love that kid inside because I've abandoned her. I didn't like her behavior. I didn't like something about her. And that I find is helpful. I mean, of course we can get a massage, get a mani-pedi and all that kind of stuff. But I find that loving the kids inside of me that got really stuck has been like, that's been the gold mine.
That's fascinating. I mean, I like that. As you say that, I can think back to myself at different times in my life, and people who've listened to this podcast, Arlene, know that I talk about having made more mistakes in my life than most people, and me needing to overcome all these different things to get where I am today. But to actually travel back and try to relate to not just me then, but the person I was or the kid that I was at that age that particular thing happened, or to kind of dive into who I was as a person at age 14, or when this event happened, how did the me then deal with it, and then try to relate to that on that level. That's a really fascinating concept, and it's not, that's something I had never thought of, and I don't know that most people have, but I think it's something that a lot of people may want to dive into a little bit deeper, because that is I can see how that could prove to or provide some great results.
Yeah. I mean, I found that I don't really, I mean, I know what was happening. Some of it I don't remember. Something happened and I got scared or afraid. And I found that when I just apologize for not being there, I'm really sorry. And I'm going to be there now. And it's not their job to take care of whatever they're nervous or upset about. It's mine as the adult. The little kids are happy. They're happy to have a love and play a game or give them an ice cream cone or whatever. The teenagers inside of me, well, they're a different story. It took a while for me to even get close to some of them. It's just like, you weren't there. I don't want anything to do with you. And so I
Yeah.
think we need to be patient with these younger bits of ourselves and just go, okay, I hear you. I was wrong for for ignoring you and pushing you away. I'm staying here. I'm still loving you from a distance, and I'm here when you need me. And it's still been a process. I
That's
just wanted to say that because the teenagers can be tricky.
Oh, for sure. I can imagine, and yeah, that process, and I'm sure it is a process, would be something that I have to think, quite a bit about, because like I said, I think it's a fascinating concept, and I, like I said, I can see in my mind's eye right now how something like that could produce some serious results. So, all right, so let's get back to the idea of the work-life balance, and how often we as human beings, especially with, like I said, with the velocity of things happening today, and the things that are coming at us, and the things that we have to get done just to keep up with everything that's going on. Arlene, how do we find hope when we start to fall into the doldrums of just feeling overwhelmed?
Well, I've already shared some things. I know what really helps me is that I just feel so much more at peace when I get out in nature. When I don't take my cell phone with me, when I get away from the electromagnetic radiation, when I give myself that break, because I just feel that she's really healing. That it's just a different experience, and we need to give ourselves time out. And I think that's what's missing for our kids a lot with the schools and everything that's not helping our children. And that's just one simple thing that we can do is just get out in nature by ourselves or with somebody else. It's just, it's around us. Even if we live in the suburbs, there's a park. For me, I can drive 45 minutes up the mountains and there's walking trails nearby. Everyone doesn't have that. You probably have more lakes near you,
Yeah.
but there's always some way that we can just get away and detox. I mean, even when I lived in the suburbs, some days I would just take a cotton towel, put it under like a tree in my backyard, lie down on the grass, and just feel myself connected with the planet. And everything felt different because we're in front of these computers way too much.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes, we want to know what's going on in the news, but there's can be a point where we're just like, no, I need to get away from all this. I don't have to know everything. And so we need to find ways to help us be more balanced and centered. And I think that she's a prime candidate. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, feeling more connected with nature. I mean, I absolutely love getting out in nature. I mean, one of the things I love to do is, whether it's I go out hunting and I go camping when I get the opportunity, and fishing. You mentioned lakes. I live here in Minnesota. I definitely do not have the work-life balance that I should have right now, because fishing is a big part of what I did growing up, and what I would like to do more nowadays. But yeah, nature is a fantastic way to kind of separate yourself from the everyday doldrums of life, and the things that just kind of weigh us down and get us overwhelmed. And so with that being said, I kind of want to transition that into gratitude and being grateful for the things. You talked about living in the suburbs, where now now you can drive 45 minutes up into the canyon and to the walking trails and things like that. I think sometimes people become so overwhelmed that they lose the forest for the trees, right?
Right.
And I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but the being grateful for the little things that we have around us, whether it be the tree in your backyard and you can just go lay down there. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful meadow on the planet. You can find the little things, and as you start to, and this is the way that I look at gratitude, Arlene, and for me, I look at gratitude as the genesis of happiness. And so when we start to just recognize those little things and be grateful for those little things and truly practice an attitude of gratitude, it becomes easier and easier to, experience that happiness.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I guess the one thing I like to share with people is, lots of times it becomes way too heady, in our heads. And it's better to even just feel grateful for a few things if we really feel them in our hearts. And I like to give people concrete examples because I think we begin to take it for granted the things that we have in our lives. We have a comfortable bed to sleep in. We have
Mm-hmm.
running water. We can take a hot shower. We have food in our refrigerator. We have food in our pantry. We have transportation. We have people that love us and we love them. And when we start with that and really look around us, even if it's a small apartment, it's not helpful to compare ourselves with other people. It's really, compared to a lot of people on the planet, we have a lot.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's really important to look around and go, wow, this is what I manifested for myself. And, it's my own little personal sanctuary. And I'm really grateful for it because people make the mistake of waiting for something to be grateful for. And when
Right.
we are really grateful for all this foundational stuff in your life, which we were talking about from a different angle, then that sort of builds our gratitude foundation just to take out into the world. And it's important not just to write a list and get it in our head. It's really important to actually feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of my clients who get stuck, I say, well, is there something in your life, some event where it was just so amazing, and it was with certain people or out in nature or something happened, and it just puts a smile on your face every time you think about it. And that can be like your go-to.
Mm-hmm.
This is something, and you just sort of think about it, and it's like your heart expands out, and you get a smile on your face, and instead of being all contracted, your energy expands out, and then it's a lot easier to be grateful and to handle whatever's going on. Because if we get afraid, we get all contracted, and then we're playing really small, and it's hard to feel that gratitude. So I hope that helped.
Oh, it absolutely helps, and I think what you're saying there, a lot of people can relate to. If it's easy and I can only speak for myself, but I know this because I've talked to so many other people that have said it. It's easy to lose sight of those small things around us, or I don't even want to go to the point of saying taking them for granted, but lose sight of how many things there are around us at any given time to be grateful for. You mentioned a bed to sleep in, food in the fridge, food in the pantry, air conditioning when it's hot. You said it's hot in Colorado today, and it's definitely hot here in Minnesota today, and grateful for the AC, and we look around the world, Arlene, and in this beautiful country of ours. I mean, even the worst of us have it better than most of the people on the planet, and I don't mean the worst of us, but the people in I probably shouldn't even have to qualify it, but people in the worst, in some of the worst conditions here, have it better than a lot of people around the world. And when we think about, I love your example of going back to a time in your life when you were just incredibly happy. But But then when I think of that example, or if I was having that same conversation with somebody, and maybe they're having a rough day today, but if I can take them back to that time, if I can take them back to that time that they were incredibly happy and incredibly grateful, I say, what was going on around you? Was the sun up? Were there clouds in the sky? Was there a particular smell? Was there a song playing on the radio? Is there anything about that time that you can, keep close in your front pocket, and then when you smell that smell, or when you hear that sound, or when you see that cloud formation in the sky, or it's similar weather condition, can you bring yourself back to that? And then if you start to focus on that kind of thing, and like I said, keep it in your front pocket. Or I talk a lot about the reticular activating system, right? Our brain can only focus on so many things at any given time. So the thing that's most fresh in our mind, or most familiar to us, if we have that right in our front pocket, and that brings us back to that point of happiness, or that overwhelm of gratitude that we had at that given moment. But if we just keep on thinking about that particular smell, that particular sound, that person whose hand we were holding at that time, or whatever the case may be, it's easier to stay in that attitude of gratitude, because those familiar things, like I said, the sky, whatever it is, it just all of a sudden it fills your heart again. At least that's my experience. And that's when I have these conversations with people, I'm like, it's not that hard if you try, because your brain is going to do it almost naturally.
Yeah. And, it's like the law of attraction is what you focus on is what you get more of in your life. And that's just that's like kind of part of your emergency toolkit when you just feel like you can't feel that gratitude. But we also have like little moments in our day oftentimes. Maybe we're standing in line at the grocery store and we just have a nice little short conversation with the person that's checking us out. We have a nice connection. That's something to acknowledge. It was just a special moment. Or you catch someone's eye across somewhere and it's just a friendly thing, and somehow you're energetically and in your eyes and maybe in a smile supporting each other. There's all sorts of little moments that we have every day that we can, if we actually pay attention, are actually special. And when we take the time to focus on it, that can build our gratitude as well.
Mm-hmm. No, that's absolutely right. Well, Arlene, we're getting close to the end of our time here today. So do bring us back to what you like to focus on. So for the DTH listeners, where can they find out more about Arlene Cohen Miller? What are some parting words that you'd like to leave the DTH listeners with today, so that they can take part in the things that you're doing to better this world that we live in?
Well, there's a quote I like to share that any disaster can become a blessing. Any blessing can become a disaster, but there's always a better way. So even if you have a disaster in your life, there's a way to turn it into a blessing. Of course, you can go the other way. You don't want to do that, but we're always learning and growing, so there's always a better way. There's no getting there. Mistakes are opportunities to learn and grow, so be kind to yourself. And if you want to get a hold of me, I'm at 720-936-2634. I do respond to texts. And my website is Jewel Consultancy, Jewel Consultancy. And I will offer a special for your To Rate the Hate audience if they mention your name and this podcast, and contact me by text or email, which is on my website. I'm happy to provide them with a free discovery session. We can talk about opportunities, what's going on for them. There's no obligation. They can just have a conversation with me, and if something goes and works, fine. Otherwise, it'll be really nice to meet some of them.
Well, thank you so much, Arlene Cohen Miller. That was a beautiful quote, and all the information that you just gave listeners will be in the show notes. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the work you're doing, and I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much, Arlene.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the Derate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms, or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.